What exposure do you have if your podcast co-host says or does something that brings liability? Hi, I'm entertainment business attorney Gordon Firemark, and this is Asked and Answered, where I answer your entertainment law questions to help you take your career and business to the next level. This question comes in from my friend Joe. He says, you spoke of co-hosts possibly owning a part of the podcast if there's no agreement in place. But what about the liability of what one co-host says? Could some of the other co-hosts be held liable? Could someone construe the podcast as a business if money was involved and then sue it as a business? And he goes on to say, I know a guy that makes over $1,000 a month in just affiliate links. He openly says he wants to pay the other host. I wonder about backup withholdings and stuff like that. This sounds dangerous. Well, Joe, this is a really great question, and it applies not only to podcasters, but also to bloggers and YouTubers, and really any other folks who might work as a team without a clear agreement in place. The bottom line is that in the law, if it looks like a duck, it'll be treated like a duck. To the outside world, co-hosts will often look like partners, unless they've got some documentation proving otherwise. And partners have joint and several liability for the business's debts and obligations. Joint and several means that each partner is responsible for the whole amount of any damages. Then, the partners can duke it out later amongst themselves over who's responsible in what proportion and stuff like that. So yes, a co-host could very well be liable for the full amount of any damages caused by another co-host's intentional or just negligent acts or omissions. And yes, it is going to look like a business. Almost always. If there's any kind of call to action and some potential for economic gain, in my book, that's a business. In the podcast, blog, and new media producer's legal survival guide, I talk about the Philadelphia blogger tax that required a blogger who'd received 78 cents from Google AdSense placement on his site to pay several $100s in city business tax. You made money, you're a business, you pay taxes, and by extension, you'll be treated like a business for all purposes. Now, the good news about backup withholding is that if the co-host is a partner, the partnership is supposed to issue a Form K-1, and partners pay taxes on their respective shares of income on a pass-through basis. So, and check with your accountant on this, backup withholding might not really be an issue unless one of you is located in another country. Now, if not partners, the co-host is likely an independent contractor, and that has other perils in the copyright arena. And the payer is supposed to issue and file Form 1099 miscellaneous to report the payments if they exceed $600. Again, I think you want to check with your tax accountant or other tax professional just to make sure about all this. But basically, if you're a co-host and a partner, you get a K-1 form. If you're an independent contractor, you're going to get a 1099 form. Now finally, the liability concerns you raise are strong reasons for forming an LLC to insulate the owners of the company from these and other kinds of liability that could befall them. It's also a good argument for insurance coverage if you can find the right kind. That's going to be errors and omissions. Now, very few podcasters even explore the insurance option, but it's something most other media businesses wouldn't think of operating without. Bottom line, a podcast is often going to look like a business, so it's likely to be treated like one in the eyes of law. So isn't it time you started treating it like one too? Get your ducks in a row. And if there's any doubt, run it by legal, just like the more mainstream media businesses do. Fortunately, that's not something that has to cost a small fortune, or a big one for that matter. Visit firemark.com/podlaw to see what I'm talking about. And that's going to do it for this episode of Asked and Answered. If you have a question you'd like me to answer here, just head on over to firemark.com/questions.